morning, everybody. Welcome to this morning's post-cabinet press briefing. My name is Leslie Ann Johnson. I am sitting in for the press secretary to the Prime Minister, Ms. Philomena Robertson, who is out of the island. And this morning we have with us the Honorable Peter David, Minister for Foreign Affairs and Labour, but we'll be discussing mainly foreign affairs matters. He'll be focusing on his recent visit to Morocco as well as India. And of course, Grenada recently hosted a Chinese Belt and Road Forum, so we'll be talking about that as well. We also have with us Mr. Alva Brung, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and he will focus on the diaspora, and he will be joined by Mrs. Tricia Mitchell-Darius, Project Coordinator for the Grenada Diaspora Project of the IOM. So, but first of all, we will start with the Honorable Peter David. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Leslie. Morning, my dear. Thanks for the introduction, and it's always a pleasure to be here to speak a bit on the work of the Ministry for Foreign Affairs, which I will be focusing on this morning, and also, as you indicated, the diaspora unit in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which we will do at the end of my discussion on foreign affairs. I just want to say, first of all, that the Ministry for Foreign Affairs has been very active over the last year and a half in pursuing the objectives of development of this country. Now, as I said many occasions, and I repeat, foreign affairs is an integral part of national development in the sense that what we do internationally must be linked to our national development. So I say that as an introductory comment to alert people and to inform that when we travel, when we visit Morocco or India, when we visit China or Africa, we do so in the context of national development and with the aims and objective of our national development uppermost in our minds. So this morning I'm pleased to announce that I recently visited the Kingdom of Morocco, where we discussed several matters concerning Grenada's development. In particular, we signed an agreement with the government of Morocco, of the Kingdom of Morocco, referred to as the Roadmap of Cooperation, the Cooperation Program for the period 2019 to 2021. As most Grenadians will be well aware, we have a long-standing relationship with Morocco, and these relations were enhanced in the last 10 years or so, when we entered into agreements for bilateral cooperation. The cooperation covers the area of education, technical cooperation, agriculture, financial assistance, and several other areas. The roadmap that we signed over this last week details some of the areas of cooperation and some of the benefits that will be accruing to Grenada. We've had some of these items for many years, and many of them have been enhanced. For example, we have an agreement where we will be provided with 20 scholarships in Morocco, in university-level scholarships, so that 20 of our students will apply to the Ministry of Education and will be accepted into Morocco universities once they have the qualifications. Now, I must say this as an introductory matter, that we have scholarships for several countries. We've had scholarships for Serbia, scholarships for Cuba, scholarships for China. And we have found over the years that while many students are taking them up, there are many other scholarships left there sitting with persons not coming in. I would urge students, I would urge young people to go to the Ministry of Education. And, you know, Morocco may seem a distant place, and persons are used to Canada and New York and Toronto, England. But countries like Morocco, there's a benefit. You learn French, you learn Arabic, and you learn a technical skill. So for Morocco, we have an agreement for 20 scholarships. In addition to that, 2 scholarships are going to be provided for a university, what's called an American university in Morocco, where 2 students, 2 what they call excellent students, will attend and be given classes in English. The 20 scholarships that I referred to a minute ago are going to be given in French. So you have the first year learning the language, French language. For these 2 scholarships to an American university in Morocco, it will be taught in English. In addition to university level courses, we are going to have 10 young people are sent to Morocco to learn to vocational training institutes. The details of which vocations they learn, which skills they learn will be worked out with Morocco. So we have an additional 10. So in all we have 32 scholarships to the Kingdom of Morocco, and we are very grateful to the Kingdom for these scholarships. In addition to that, we are going to there is cooperation in agriculture. The farmers would know over the years that Morocco has been giving some of the best fertilizer we've had, and they have agreed to give us 110 tons of fertilizer every year over the next 3 years. 110 tons of fertilizer as a grant to Grenada will be given from the Kingdom of Morocco. In addition to that, we get training in tourism, training of guides, training in marketing, in tourism entertainment, and training in gastronomy, meaning our chefs, our cooks, as we call them, will learn in Morocco. Morocco is known as a very developed tourism country. If persons know places like Marrakesh and Fez, these are places that millions of tourists have visited, and they certainly can assist us in developing our tourism industry. In fact, over the last couple of years, several persons have gone to Morocco from the Ministry of Tourism in order to learn certain skills in the tourism industry. In addition to that, financial assistance in the amount of $500,000 a year over the next 3 years will be granted to the Ministry of Finance. That's over $1 million EC granted every year for the next 3 years from the Kingdom of Morocco to Grenada. Something I find very important too is the soil testing. The Kingdom has also agreed to test our soil. One of the things that I've lamented over the years is that we are not testing our soil to see what other products we can produce. There may be many other products that we can produce that are high yield, that are able to bring in higher incomes than we have currently. They are going to be doing soil testing in order to ensure that we are using our land in the most productive area. So I am pleased to report these areas, the main areas of cooperation: education, agriculture, tourism, and other cooperation at the diplomatic level. So I think that is, for us, a very important development. Yes, and the vocational training. In fact, I've said to many persons I meet out there that while we welcome university scholarships, I think we must go in the direction of getting more vocational training. So I welcome the 10 scholarships that we are going to get for students in vocational training. So that is the result of the recent visit to Morocco, and that is the roadmap, that agreement that we signed. Additionally, last week, I think the media will be aware, and Grenada will be aware through the news, that we had a conference with the Belt and Road Conference. The Belt and Road is a mechanism developed by President Xi in China to work with countries like Grenada to develop cooperation, particularly in infrastructure and other areas of cooperation, including tourism, agriculture, and so on and so forth. What we did last week was we invited Grenada a year ago, just over a year ago, signed on to the Belt and Road Agreement. Several Caribbean countries did it, and over 100 countries throughout the world have signed agreements with the People's Republic of China on the Belt and Road Initiative. So, but while we are hearing a lot about Belt and Road, there has not been much details about the mechanism to access the investment, to access the assistance, to access the infrastructure development through Belt and Road. So last week, we gathered persons from the Caribbean region, from Jamaica in the north to Trinidad in the south and Guyana, even countries that do not have diplomatic relations with the People's Republic of China. They all gathered in St. George's to meet with the Chinese delegation who are outlined the ways in which countries like Grenada can access Belt and Road financing and assist in the development of our countries. And it went very well. The attendance was great. The information received was well received by the persons in attendance, particularly in the area of tourism. I think there was much discussion on two areas of tourism. One, how can we develop the infrastructure in our countries, hotels and so on, but also how do we get flights, how do we get tourists coming from China, over 100 million Chinese tourists every year. All we need is a small percentage of that. We discussed how do we get, there were persons here from the China aviation industry, and they discussed how we in the Caribbean can benefit from accessing the Chinese tourism market. So those discussions went well, and some new discussions will take place as we go forward as to how we access Chinese tourists. In addition to China, in the last several weeks, I visited India and had discussions with the Indian Foreign Ministry. And as you're well aware, we also met, the Prime Minister met with Prime Minister Modi on the margins of the United Nations in September. In my visit to India, I was able not only to meet government officials, the Chief Minister of Gujarat, the Foreign Minister of India, who we met in Delhi. We had discussions on how do we develop, how do we enhance the relationship between India and the Caribbean, and India and Grenada in particular. India is one of the fastest developing countries in the developing world. India, as you're well aware, quite good in technology, good in education, good in medicine, and we believe that while we keep good relations with our traditional partners, because I always say this, we have excellent relationship with our traditional partners like the United Kingdom, the United States, and Canada, but we must seek to deepen relations with new partners. So that is why, we have excellent relations with India at the moment. We sought relations with several other countries, including Morocco and others, because we must diversify the relationships. And India is going to form an important part in that diversification. So we are seeking to establish diplomatic contacts, enhance the diplomatic contacts by establishing some consulates in India, hopefully, ultimately, the establishment of an embassy in India. And what I have found on the visit is that the Indian businessmen in India are eager to come to the Caribbean to invest. We already have several Indian businessmen in Grenada at the level of commerce. We need to enhance those to take them in a bigger and better direction. So we've had some discussions on that. We hope to enhance that in the future. So the India visit was very productive, and we look forward to further discussions in the future. So those are the main initiatives over the last couple of weeks. I will entertain some questions and hopefully maybe give some further elaboration later in the morning.
Thank you very much, Minister. Questions from anybody? All right, maybe I can begin. Minister, let's go back to the Morocco visit. The scholarships that you mentioned, any particular time frame from when they will begin, take effect?
Well, hopefully applicants will come in so that next September we can get the students off. Their school year starts similar to ours, August, September, we get them off. So once we get all the technical arrangements in place later this year, early next year, hopefully by next September they can access it. And I repeat what I said earlier. We get scholarships from several countries. We have scholarships from Serbia that people haven't taken up. I was quite happy recently when I visited Serbia to discover that there were students there. One just completed his undergraduate and has received a scholarship to do postgraduate work in engineering in Serbia. And there are 3 others there. So for Morocco, we've had several students who graduated over the last 10 years in Morocco since we established relations, I think in 2011, 2012, enhanced relations, by next year, hopefully, several students will go off to Morocco, both to do vocational training and university training.
You mentioned $500,000 for the next 3 years from Morocco for the Ministry of Finance. What will that money be used for?
financial support. The Ministry of Finance will determine its use, and that is not going to be tied to any particular project. It's just financial support to Grenada, budgetary support, I think it's called, for the government of Grenada.
And also the India visit, you mentioned about maybe establishing consulate embassy there. Any idea how soon you're looking to do that, or you have to have more discussions before that?
Well, there must be more discussions before we do that. Hopefully we start at the level of consulates, consul generals, honorary consuls, which will enhance the relationship, seek investments. We must also recognize that, you know, I remember, I think it was Prime Minister Cameron in the United Kingdom several years ago when he became Prime Minister. He spoke about using his embassies as nearly as commercial outposts. Grenada must use its embassies and consulates in order to attract investment. We rely on foreign direct investment to a large extent. While we have local investment, foreign direct investment is important not only to Grenada, but for every single one of the Caribbean countries. In fact, I dare say to all developing countries. So our embassies will be used not only to enhance diplomatic relations, which is extremely important, but also to enhance the commercial activity in the country, investment in the country. So India, being one of the most significant sources of capital in recent years, will certainly establish these outposts in order to attract investment into the country. Thank you.
Good morning, Calistro. A few questions, if I may. The first one, I would like you spoke of scholarships. I'd like you to comment on the status of our Grenadian students studying in China. I know we now have an issue where a number of them have been falling ill, both students who are there now and students who, and persons who have returned. There seems to be a situation where people of African descent are being affected by a particular illness that manifests itself as tumors within the body, and it's confirmed that some Grenadians have been affected by this. Is your ministry aware of it? Is the embassy in China doing anything about that? My second question...
Let me take the first one and then I'll...
Usually I get cut off, so I'm hoping I can ask everything I want to ask. So I was hoping to get it all there.
Go right ahead.
So,
I have no difficulty.
Yes, and my second question would be, tell me what level of Chinese interest and involvement there is in our heritage sites and or tourism under the Belt and Road Agreement. What are the Chinese attempting to do, attempting to get?
With what? I don't understand.
Under the investment program with Belt and Road, it's a huge undertaking where we are getting to access funding and so on and so forth. Apart from interest rates, what else is in the mix? Are the Chinese showing any interest in our heritage sites in terms of doing investment here? Is there any quid pro quo sort of situation as far as those arrangements are concerned? Specifically on the Belt and Road, or generally, as far as the Chinese are concerned?
No.
And I'm not sure if did you speak about labor issues when you? Because
I don't plan to concentrate on it, but if you have a question, I'll hear it.
And I would like to know what the status of negotiations. I understand government has called the unions back to the table, but had declared the negotiations deadlocked and gone ahead to negotiate with the teachers. So there seems to be a little bit of confusion in terms of the normal process for negotiations.
Okay. All right. With respect to the Chinese the Grenadian students in China, all we know of, there are two students, Grenadian students who fell ill, but they both suffered from pre-existing conditions. So it was nothing that was contracted in China. And I have had contacts with, in fact, one of them came back and has returned to China recently and is now, in fact, she sent me a lovely note last week indicating that she's done her exams and she's done very well on it. Hers was a pre-existing condition and there was somebody else with a pre-existing condition. As for illnesses affecting people of African descent, I have no information on that. But we've had students being ill in other countries. You know, when you have many students abroad, we are going to have some who are going to fall ill. With respect to Belt and Road Initiative, well, the way the Belt and Road is structured, we determine what areas of investment we want. It is not an imposition by any country. So the areas of investment we will decide. So, for example, if we determine that we want to have an investment in the hotel industry, then we engage those persons who want to do that. If we want to do it in agriculture, then we engage. So it is not a mechanism where the Chinese government will tell us where they want to invest. We will determine where we want investment as a sovereign country, and then we will find partners who partner with us in investment in that area. So I mentioned tourism. So we want to get some Chinese tourists into Grenada, into the Caribbean, and I was happy that most of the islands were thinking along the same route. So we've decided to engage some of the Chinese airlines so that they can fly. And now China is flying straight to Panama, going through I think it's California. We are trying to see if we can get them to come straight to the Caribbean. We spoke about the hub and spoke system, where they can land in maybe Trinidad, Jamaica, Grenada, Barbados, and distribute Chinese to the various islands through that. So we are engaging the airlines in order to do that. So our focus is to look to see what we want for national development. Now, if it is determined that tourism sites need enhancement and there's a Chinese company willing to invest in it, then we do so. But it would all be based on our national interests and what we see as the areas of investment that we require for the development of our country. With respect to union negotiations, well, as Minister of Labour, as I've said many, many times, one of the negotiating, I'll give you an example, one of the negotiations are now in the hands of the Labour Commissioner. If it breaks down at the level of the Labour Commissioner, it comes to the Minister of Labour. So as Minister of Labour, I tend to stay away from comment on the subject of the negotiations because I may find myself at some point having to receive them and to have some kind of arbitration between them. So the negotiations are going on, and it has not gotten to my office as yet, except at the level of the Labour Commissioner.
Thank you, Minister. Anybody else with questions?
Mr. Noel, you had some questions, you said?
Ms. Johnson basically asked you what I wanted based on what you said. So I'll wait for the next round.
Okay.
All right.
Are we able to end the news conference? Yes,
Well, if you have a question,
Minister, last November, I believe you took a trip to the UAE or some, out there. I was wondering if you recall that trip and what came out of it as far as Grenadian interests are concerned. If you remember
UAE.
Yeah,
I've had several trips in the last year.
November last.
November. Well, I've had trips thereafter to the UAE, to Dubai in particular.
Yes.
Well, I will say that we've now established the consulate in Dubai. We have a consul general based in Dubai, so we have an office in Dubai seeking the interests of Grenada. We've had discussions with Dubai on several matters. I think the most important of the matters we have with Dubai now is Dubai Expo, which is coming up in 2020. We have, along with other Caribbean countries, a booth at the expo. We are going to be exposed to the world. It's one of the bigger expos that will take place in the world. And we are in a process, along with the Ministry of International Business, and the Ministry of Trade, seeking to be present in a big way at the Expo in 2020. But apart from that, we are seeking investments from persons in the UAE, in Dubai in particular, who can come to Grenada to invest. And it's a process, it's a work in progress. But at the moment, we are now established in Dubai. We have a consulate in Dubai, and we are working along with the government and the people of Dubai to enhance mutual relations.
And have any of the trips that you have taken on state matters, or any of the trips that you've taken at all, do you recall, have they been paid for by the state? Have you had any trips that were paid for by any investors or any people with interests outside of our state and treasury?
I have had trips that are paid for by the government. You asked me if I had any paid for by the government.
No, not the Grenadian government.
I have had trips paid for by the United Nations. In fact, I'm going to Kenya on Thursday, paid for by the United Nations. I've had trips paid for by several persons.
No, not generally. The trips to that part of
to
the
Dubai?
world, the UAE, Dubai, and so on.
No, the UAE trip that I went in November was for the, the Expo, and it's paid for by the UAE government as part of the Expo outreach. They paid, all Caribbean delegations were paid for by the UAE government, yes.
Okay, is that it? All right, thank you very much. So as I mentioned at the start of the post-cabinet press briefing, we also have with us Mr. Alva Brown. He's the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and he'll be speaking on the diaspora. Ms. Tricia Mitchell is down here, and she is the project coordinator for the Grenada Diaspora Project, IOM, so she will be with us as well. Mr. Brown, on to you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Good morning to members of the media and those of you listening to us and viewing at this time. Today we want to brief you a bit on our new diaspora initiative. And as you may be aware, our diaspora can play a major role in our national development. And in some cases, they are playing a role as we speak. The talents and skills within the diaspora are wide and varied, as you would agree. It is our firm view, though, that if we engage in an organized and strategic manner, we can harness those skills and resources in national development. And so we have engaged the International Organization for Migration to assist us in an organized and strategic way in engaging our diaspora so that we can engage in the local development agenda. And so I want to introduce you to Mrs. Tricia Mitchell Darius, our project officer from the IOM, currently attached to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to give you a brief overview on the new diaspora initiative, the project, what it entails, after which I'll invite the minister to speak a little bit on the project and we'll entertain your questions thereafter. Mrs. Darius.
Thank you. Thank you, P.S. Brown. Minister, everyone, good morning. Standing on protocol already established, I bring greetings from the Regional Coordinating Office for the Caribbean of the International Organization for Migration, the UN agency in Guyana, and particularly on behalf of Head of Mission, Mr. Robert Natiello. IOM is proud to provide technical assistance to the government of Grenada as it strives to create a mutually beneficial relationship with its diaspora. As PS alluded to, our diaspora, there exists enormous potential in skills, knowledge, and expertise by Grenadians abroad, which is not currently being utilized in country. This is an indication that the diaspora has a huge untapped potential to positively contribute to the growth of Grenada's economy. According to the World Bank, Grenadians abroad have injected an average of $25 million into the economy annually. These stats range from 1986 to 2017, with the highest contributing years being 2004, and we know why with the passage of Ivan. Note that these statistics do not take into account other contributions to the economy like investment in real estate, banking, foreign currency exchange. In February 2019, the government of Grenada, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, was awarded a 2-year Community and Economic Development Project grant by the International Development Fund through the International Organization for Migration, a UN member agency valued at US $200,000. Dubbed GD4D, which is short for Grenadian Diaspora for Development, this project seeks to engage the Grenadian diaspora globally. The project will facilitate a collection of data on skills, resources, and the return interests and plans of those willing to support the development of Grenada through organizations and institutions here in Grenada. The information collected through the project will help to guide government policies aimed at engaging the diaspora. Just a little bit about the funder. Established in 1951, IOM is the leading international governmental organization in the field of migration and works closely with governmental, intergovernmental, and non-governmental partners. So here are the key project activities. These will be implemented over the next 12 to 18 months. Firstly, we have a diaspora mapping project. This exercise will be implemented using an online survey tool, which will collect information about the socioeconomic profile of Grenadians in the diaspora in North America and the Caribbean, to begin the creation of a database of skills for knowledge transfer. Secondly, we have remittances for development. As I mentioned earlier, Grenadians contribute significantly to the development of Grenada through our remittances. The project aims to discuss ways in which the cost of sending these remittances for people in the diaspora can be reduced and how these remittances can be structured for national development. Re-establishing the Office of Diaspora Affairs. The aim is to create an institutional mechanism in Grenada to advise and implement government's policy with respect to the diaspora and to ensure that a system is put in place to ensure accountability and transparency in operations in order to accomplish the goals and vision and to coordinate the work of diaspora organizations while strengthening linkages with the Grenadian diaspora. We will also conduct a skills gap analysis. We will very shortly be recruiting a consultant to assist us in gathering information regarding current and future skills gap in Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. Finalizing the already drafted Grenada Diaspora Engagement Policy. This policy is the first clear, formal statement of the government towards the diaspora, which recognizes that Grenada has a unique and important relationship with its diaspora that must be nurtured and developed. Consultations in the diaspora is already underway. We've had meetings in London and last month in Washington. And upcoming locations are Toronto, which will be on the 16th of November, New York, and potentially other locations in the US and in the Caribbean. And lastly, to establish an online hub to connect the diaspora online. This online communication portal has been created at grenadiandiaspora.gd to serve as a conduit between locals and the diaspora as a one-stop shop for up-to-date, relevant information and coordination of all diaspora affairs. Upcoming activities for the next period is the completing of the draft engagement policy for tabling in cabinet. We're looking at a timeline of February 2020. The skills gap analysis, as I mentioned, should run from January to February 2020. And the remittance workshop, which we will extend invitations to financial institutions, also money remittances organizations such as Western Union and MoneyGram to join us in a discussion as to how we can potentially reduce the cost of sending remittances to Grenada. And as I close, I would like to encourage everyone, when you have the time, to visit the website, which is www.grenadiandiaspora.gd. Please tell your family and friends out in the diaspora, and I would like to direct you to the survey that is on there, which is our online data tool, which will feed into a database, a skills database that the government of Grenada will be able to access, so that we're able to connect with the diaspora for any opportunities that may arise from the perspective of it may be job opportunities, it may be volunteer opportunities, it may be investment. Please take the survey so that Grenada knows how to connect with you when any of these opportunities arise. I will now take your questions.
Before we take the questions, I'll invite Minister David to speak a little bit on the initiative from the policy level, after which we'll take your questions. Thanks.
In further developing our engagement with the diaspora, Ms. Darius, sorry about that, Trisha. I call her Trisha all the time, so didn't get the first time I'm hearing the last name. So I want to thank you and the team for doing a wonderful job in developing the engagement. The diaspora, I've said it many, many times over the last 10, 15 years, that our diaspora is critical for our development. The diaspora is not just a group of people out there who sometimes we rely on just to send this and send that for us. They are should be engaged as a part of our development process. The mapping project that you have, I think, is excellent. It tells us where our people are and how our people can engage with us in national development. So I want to urge everyone in the diaspora who may be listening at this time to get online and engage in that survey, because it is only through that we'll have the information. Secondly, remittances for development. How do we... Remittances form an important part of our economy. And how do we engage the diaspora, not only with respect to in remittances, but in investment in the country? I remember a gentleman once had an idea about a diaspora bond to help raise funds, a wonderful idea. And there are other ideas like that, some of which we will get from the diaspora itself. How can they invest? And generally, how can the diaspora invest? Can they invest in hotels, in tourism sites? Can they invest in other projects, in education? The diaspora is an important tool for development, I keep repeating. So that is why the Diaspora Office of Diaspora Affairs is working on this project. I want to thank the International Organization of Migration for doing the work with us. We, as Tricia indicated, we entered into an agreement with them where they are financing this part of the diaspora project so that we can, as a government, we can develop a policy on engagement with the diaspora. We want to move from the stage where we just have, we go to New York, we have a meeting, we come back, people come visit for Carnival, they come for Christmas. The diaspora is much more than that. The diaspora must be seen. I've always said, and I said this many years ago, it's our 16th constituency and must be treated as our 16th constituency in that they must be integrated into national development. I know there are many skilled persons out there who can use their skills even while remaining in the diaspora these days with all of the technology that we have. So, again, I want to thank the team for developing this project. I want to urge all Grenadians in the diaspora in Grenada to become involved in the project, and certainly we will be reporting back to you as the government unfolds the policy. Through the Ministry for Foreign Affairs, we will be getting back to you. As the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is responsible also for diaspora affairs, we will be getting back to you on how the policies are going and how the ideas we've come up with for the diaspora engagement in the national development of Grenada.
Thank you, Minister. Any questions, anybody?
Good morning, Sherry and Noel, GIS. I have a couple questions. First to the Minister. What are the opportunities for diaspora investment in terms of economic development? That's the first question.
Well, first, let me say this. All opportunities for investment are open to everybody. There is no opportunity for diaspora, opportunity for non-diaspora, opportunity for locals. For example, there's no reason why persons in the diaspora can't invest in hotels. Individually or as a group, I've always said we have persons in the diaspora, if they came together, could develop a tourism project, a hotel. Farming is a thing that is in need of enhancement, the farming industry. All areas of investment are open to persons in the diaspora. So I urge them, tourism sites, I mentioned, for example, they can adopt a site. We've heard recently the government talking about sites. It's a policy that we've had for more than 20 years in various governments in Grenada, that they get involved in developing tourism sites, because we need to, as the Minister of Tourism said, we need to enhance our tourism product. They can get involved in that. They can get involved in health. We have excellent health practitioners in the diaspora. Any hospital you go to in the New York area, you would find doctors, you would find nurses, you would find all kinds of healthcare professionals. Maybe they can get engaged in that. So all areas of investment are open to the diaspora, and hopefully through this project, we'll be able to get them here and to get them, more involved in investment.
Notwithstanding what you just said, can you elaborate a little more as to the mechanisms that can be put in place as we talk, same education and health in terms of exchanges?
Well, no, the mechanisms are what we are going to develop through this diaspora engagement. With the engagement, with the discussions with persons in the diaspora, the mechanisms will be outlined. We don't have the mechanisms, but they are readily available mechanisms as we stand. What we need to do, you see, your question itself reveals the problem, that the diaspora must be made aware of the availability of investment opportunities. And that is not sufficiently being done. That is why there's this view that investments are only there for foreigners. It's absolutely untrue. Any person from the diaspora, and we've had it. I've had many persons in the diaspora come to Grenada and say, listen, we want to invest in this, that, or the other. We must find a smoother mechanism to ensure that it's done. But that is why we're engaging in this project.
Okay. And my final question is to Mrs. Darius. If you can give us a little more on the whole issue of the mapping as to how far along you are and what is your deadline in terms of completing to make your presentation.
Okay, so I'll answer the last part first. We are hoping to complete this mapping project by the end of 2020, so December 2020. We will definitely review the statistics that we have collected thus far, and we will be making the results. The results will be public. We will make it. We'll probably host another press conference to release those results. The mapping project has already begun. We started actually in London in July. The online survey actually just came online in August. We deployed that in Washington when we visited there. So it's open and available for all Grenadians globally to go online. The website, as I mentioned, is www.grenadiandiaspora.gd, and they can actually go online and take the survey.
If I can just go back one, though. You mentioned the meeting in London, I think it was Washington, and you're projecting to go to Canada and so Toronto and so on. What has the feedback been from those that were already had in terms of people coming out and having those engagements? Definitely.
The response was really positive, both in Washington and in London. Grenadians in the diaspora are really very much engaged, and they've been wanting the government to create this kind of opportunity for them to engage in a smoother way, as Minister just mentioned. So we had quite a good turnout in London, and we had a good turnout in Washington as well.
If I may, on that issue, I did attend the consultation, and I plan to attend the one in Toronto next week. I was not surprised, but quite pleased with the responses out there. And I'm not surprised because we've always had engagements with the diaspora. As I always say, I've lived in Canada, I've lived in New York, I've lived in London. And I know, and I say this all the time, again, the further away Grenadians go from Grenada is the more patriotic they become. And they want engagement. I think what we have done is not find the avenues and the pathways to the engagement. That is why we are trying to formalize it now. Other countries have done this. Countries like India and Israel and Jamaica, they have done an excellent job of engaging the diaspora. So we've had excellent responses, as Tricia indicated. Ideas, in fact, even after we left, the ideas keep coming about how we can do it. And that is what I want to say to the people in the diaspora. This is their project. This is their call. They have been calling for years to become more involved in Grenada. And this is a way of doing it. I've heard the complaints in the diaspora. I've heard people say in the diaspora, listen, we sending this to Grenada, people don't even say thanks. And I've heard the complaints that we treat them only as if they're there to send stuff, but we don't consult with them. This is the opportunity to treat them And I know what it is because I've lived out there, as if they are part of the development of Grenada, because they are part. Remittances coming to this country, if it dries up, will have a serious negative economic impact. And that is why we're saying this process not only helps the development, but it gives the diaspora the respect that it deserves by way of getting them not just involved as senders of items, but as persons who assist in decision-making in several areas of our country. So in tourism, in health, in housing, they can, but we have to build a mechanism. We don't have the answers. We only get the answers when we engage with them, and that is why we're going out there next week. And this will not end at the development of the policy, because the policy itself will develop a mechanism for consistent engagement with the diaspora. I've heard some excellent ideas. I've heard ideas like we should have a senator in Grenada responsible for diaspora affairs, because the diaspora is so important. So ideas are coming. When the ideas come, we dilute them, we fix them, we sort them out into, not dilute them, but we bring them into the plan and we do some consultation. Then we will have the mechanism in place so that persons who live in London, New York, Toronto, Africa, Europe, they will see themselves as part of the development process. So the consultations have been excellent, and I'm sure going forward they will become even more exciting.
Certainly, investment from the diaspora is nothing new. We have dozens of people from all over the Grenadians investing here. One of the difficulties that they have encountered is the environment, the doing business environment in Grenada, where they found it very difficult, from the port to operating on the ground. What are some of the fundamental elements and aspects of this movement that we are on here that are we already coming up with, as you say, mechanisms that would make it easier for our people in the diaspora to, I'm assuming this is the whole point of the thing. So on the investment side of it, give me a little idea of where we're going in making it easier for our people to do business here. A lot of them have lost millions of dollars trying to invest at home.
So this is the whole thrust of the Office of Diaspora Affairs. By the time this project is concluded, we will have reestablished, revitalized the Office of Diaspora Affairs with a proper structure and proper mechanisms and procedures in place to facilitate some of the, to sort of smooth some of the bumps in the road that persons from the diaspora. I'm from the diaspora. I've spent 15 years in Toronto, and I've experienced some of the challenges that you've indicated here in terms of, you know, the whole process on the port, and Minister, you've mentioned not even getting a thank you. You know, I ran a nonprofit organization in Toronto, and sometimes, you know, you send stuff, you never get a response, you never get a feedback, anything. So this would be the whole point of the Office of Diaspora Affairs, that we are going to create those mechanisms, those avenues, those policies and procedures that will enable persons in the diaspora who are willing to contribute to Grenada's development to make it easier for them to do business, just as you mentioned.
Not to belabor the point, but even if it's just one area that has already been considered of how we can ease their participation in development, specifically in investments. And so besides the fact that we need to be a bit more grateful and say thanks, what else are we, one of the things that we can say, okay, this is something that the Grenada government intends to push for in this policy that is going to make a marked change in encouraging our people to come home and invest. Anything at all?
Well, the Office of Diaspora Affairs will become the one-stop shop for all of that. So if you are out in the diaspora and you are looking in any way, shape, or form to engage with Grenada, whether it be for investment or volunteer or anything you would like to do, your first point of contact will be the Office of Diaspora Affairs. And there will be personnel, once the government of Grenada has exactly figured out what the construct of that office would be, there will be officers who will be ready and willing to assist anyone who's looking to do that kind of that kind of business, that kind of transaction. We are at the very beginning of that process. This is not going to be a silver bullet. It is not going to be. It's not going to be an easy process to do, and it's not. It's also not going to happen overnight. So we are at the beginning. This is also why we're doing consultations out in the diaspora. We are looking for the ways in which the diaspora want to be engaged with. And once we have all of those, once we get that kind of information, then we will fashion that into a process that will make it simpler, but it will start with the Office of Diaspora Affairs. And I'm sure once the Office of Diaspora Affairs is ready to be relaunched, there will be an invitation to the press, and I'm sure that there will be a rollout of some policies and procedures that will certainly answer your question.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Anybody else on the head table? Is there anything else you need to say?
Well, no, just on that point, I think Tricia made the point I was going to make. But one of the things, for example, if you go down to the port now, I'm sure you'll see containers sent with stuff that's been sitting there for years. So they have to auction out because, you send one note out there and say, listen, we need help for the hospital. And everybody just comes together and sends stuff for the hospital, things you need, things you don't need. That's the experience. With the Office of Diaspora Affairs and a coordinator, we'll be able to coordinate that assistance. So the persons will pick up the phone, call the office, find out what you need. There'll be somebody coordinating the assistance. So people in Grenada who want it. So this central hub, do not underestimate the value of that in terms of minimizing waste, both of the person's time and of material. So I think Joshua makes the point, the establishment, or not the establishment, it's already been established, but the development, and given the Office of Diaspora Affairs that role is itself a significant development. And what we expect to have in there, on your point, Kalisha, on investment, because it's an important point, that we hopefully will have somebody who will be able to say, listen, these are the investment opportunities, these are the areas in which the diaspora can do it, and let's discuss it, and then channel it to the right. So, of course, we would not be the persons who would be, the GIDC is there, but at least we'll send them to the GIDC and have a link with the GIDC in order to facilitate that. But it's early days yet. I think we will get there, but just the fact that the office will have that role is big for us, and the answer to your question. But we'll have more answers later on.
Minister, there are people from the diaspora who are already here operating.
Right.
How are
You mean people who live here?
Yeah, people who have already come home and done what we're talking about here, invested and have businesses running, and so how would this and are having a lot of difficulty? Some of it just because people feel they've come here. Grenadians, as much as we love the remittances, sometimes we tend to be a little closed off when they are here. So are we also looking at the people who are already here and operating?
Certainly.
In how all of this is going to roll out?
We have found that. In fact, the experience of persons who return to Grenada is something that we have to look at, because the transition to back to Grenada after living in London or living in New York or living in some of these countries, the expectations you have, you can kind of be shocked when you get back that you have to readjust back to Grenada. So yes, the Office of Diaspora Affairs will also assist persons who are coming back to settle down. Of course, when you come from New York or you come from London, the expectations also have to be tempered, because now you're coming back to an entirely different society, the society that may or may not have changed since you left. So yes, there will be a role for the office in doing that, in helping them to settle down. But there are two.
Sorry, I'm just talking about persons who are here, and for instance, Montpure, they came back, they established a business. They are having some difficulties being here.
Well, let me say this to you.
And I'm just using them generally.
Let me say this to you, that the difficulties faced by any particular businessman is a difficulty we face as Grenadians, not necessarily as a Grenadian from the diaspora. The diaspora office is essentially to engage with persons in the diaspora and to assist persons to transition. But once persons have transitioned and are back at home, then the Office of Diaspora Affairs is not responsible for that. We are mostly engaged with persons living in the diaspora, persons intending to invest, and persons who are coming back home can get assistance from the diaspora. But it is my view and this is just my view now, not reflecting the views of the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs, that once settled into the country, then the diaspora affairs role will be slowly minimized in that regard.
So what I'm trying to get at is whatever ease that is created by this process we're going through, because we're hoping to create ease for them. So whatever ease, it's not going to be a retroactive sort of thing. The people who have come in from the diaspora, have established businesses, are operating
Whatever
here.
help we can give them, we'll help.
They won't. I'm not sure if this is making sense. They won't fall under the benefits that may be derived from all of the elements of this plan that would be put in place.
Well, there's a limit to what we can do, but certainly if they come back and they have a problem in conducting their business, to the extent that they are transitioning in, sure. But remember, the office does not have the power to control any of these elements over there. But wherever we can help, we'll help them. We recognize that they've come from the diaspora. They need assistance in settling down. They need assistance wherever they can. We will help. But our main mandate will be to help persons, to help Grenada's development through bringing them in. And certainly, if they have problems while they are here, we will help.
That's it? Anybody else? All right, any final words from anybody on the head table? Or are we good?
I just want to once again reiterate, this process will only be effective if we're able to collect data effectively. One of the things we are really good at as Grenadians is we're really good oral historians, but we are not really good on data collection and on really having data that we can make informed, structured decisions on. So the owners, the diaspora, me included, have been clamoring for the government to really take us seriously and for the government to create mechanisms and processes and policies that include us in Grenada's development. But the onus is now on us. The government has said, okay, we've heard you, and we are now going to create an online survey to allow you to tell us where you are, tell us what you're doing, and tell us what you would like to do in Grenada. And so the onus now is on members of the diaspora to go online, www.grenadiandiaspora.gd, and to take the survey so that we can have some data that really backs up what we say. So again, go on out, take the survey. It's www.grenadiandiaspora.gd. This is your opportunity to allow Grenada to be able to connect with you on a holistic level, as well in terms of the policy. The draft Grenada Diaspora Engagement Policy is downloadable on the website. Please take the opportunity to review that. If you have feedback, we are accepting submissions until December the 31st. And or if you are in a city near where the project team will be visiting, please come on out. We will be in Toronto on November the 16th. The information is also on the website. Thank you.
Before you go, before the minister closes, as you would appreciate, this is a very comprehensive project. And we ask that you disseminate information to your friends and relatives, family members in the diaspora, to take the survey. Because without the mapping exercise, we would not be able to achieve much. And so we believe that the diaspora can play a major role in national development. And we want you to help us to get the word out there. And, you know, sometimes it's seen as a one-way kind of relationship. We want to change that members of the diaspora can also benefit from the initiatives and the programs and so on. And that's what the consultations are about, so that they can also tell the government what they'd like to see happen for them as well, as much as we tell them what we'd like to see happen in Grenada's development and the contribution that they can make towards our development. Thanks.
Well, I'll just close again by thanking persons in the diaspora community, wherever they are, for their continued efforts to assist in the development of Grenada. We welcome all of their contributions. We invite them to participate in this project. We invite them to have their views known, to make recommendations as to how there is no one answer to any one of the questions. There are many ideas out there, contending ideas. Let's get the ideas, let's discuss them, and let's put the mechanism in place. We in the Ministry for Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Affairs welcome all of the ideas we've received thus far and look forward to further engagement. So as we come out and engage with you, as we develop the policy, please, let us have the policy reflect your views, not our views. We have views, I have views, but we need to get together and have these views in a project so that development of Grenada is enhanced. And you, who I call the 16th constituency, you play an integral part in that process. And I look forward to engaging with you when I come out there. Please let us discuss how we develop our diaspora, how we develop the country, and how we do that together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister David. And thank you, colleagues, for coming. And so, of course, we want to thank those watching on GIS Channel 22 online and, of course, in the diaspora. So we've had Honorable Minister Peter David, Minister for Foreign Affairs and Labour, speaking about his recent visit to Morocco and, of course, to India, the benefits that can be derived, and, of course, the recent Belt and Road Forum that was held right here in Grenada. And the next to Minister David is Mr. Alva Brown, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as he's focused on the diaspora, and next to him, Mrs. Tricia Mitchell-Darius, the project coordinator for the Grenada Diaspora Project. So we have a lot to work on. Let us ensure that we bring out the information for the benefit of all. Thank you so much and have a great day today.
Now this is the big one as Culture Train String Band Group presents The Param Train 2.0 from Friday, November 1st to Saturday, December 21st. And we kick things off on the Sister Isle. Friday, November 1st, the Brunswick Cemetery. November 9th, Bristol Shop in Leicester. November 15th, Modest Shop in Mount Royal. November 16th, Waynes Bar, Hillsborough. November 22nd, Brongo Shop, Harvey Vale. November 23rd, Goosey Shop, Winwood. November 27th, Sky Shop in Brunswick. November 29th, we head to Union Island to Hugh Malzak Square, Clifton. November 30th, we inside P.T. Martinic at Jigs Cross. December 4th, Pro Shop, Belvedere. On December 6th, we head to the mainland Grenada at Travelers Bar, Grandmore. And on December 8th, Gold's Bar under the Bamboo, Pedmota. December 11th, Marvin Shop in 6 Roads. And on Saturday, December 21st, it's the grand finale round the island. And all events start from 7 p.m. Parang Train 2.0, brought to you by Grenada Tourism Authority, Government of Grenada, Grenada Distillers Limited, Digicel, WeiVybz FM, Sister Isle Radio, Amazing Colors, Ariza Credit Union, and Booms Construction.
The Parang Train, and they'll be coming in by you.
HARDTALK Grenada via www.hardtalkgrenada.com.
My enemy's walls are bound to crumble, and to the floor the spears will fall. I've been mean and filled with love, but in the battle I'll fight them all. I felt the roots. Sword has been forged by my father's faith. Fight your fears and heal your pain, and victory will be in your name. But I'm not back no more. I've understood that my ancestors deep down in Africa. I used to be fighting. I'm not afraid no more. The Father blessed me with the heart of a lion and a warrior soul. So no weapon that form against I shall not prevail. And no weapon that rise against I shall never fail. Because I will conquer. Thank you. Father, you alone shall guide me. No man shall lead my path. In the wind I hear your quiet whispers, and you heal my broken heart. Even some of my friends turn enemies, and they pray for right to feel. And remember to give us your only begotten son, but we gave him the wound of lies. Send down your warriors with the hello. We carry down to the end of days. No matter how the devil try trick me, unto you my soul I will give. Father, I know this time is coming. I can see the high tide waves. Without you there is no other.